basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience.
The Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Prizepicks and the Gametime.
Okay, you're listening to the Bob Ryan, Gary Tanguay podcast right here. Proud member of the CLNS Media Network. The show brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks, run your game. Bob, we are back on the winning side of things. We are up to Ubuntu with Doc Rovers and with Celtics City. And I have to ask this first of all. What did you think when they hired Doc?
I was ecstatic. I go back to my discovery of the Doc Rovers. I mean, I knew he was a player. No, I didn't. Doc Rovers came to Boston as a member of the Chicago team in the shootout, the senior year at high school. And Doc Rovers put on the greatest guard show that I ever saw, and I went to a lot of shootouts, okay? Best forward, by the way, was Bernard King. Best center was Patrick Ewing that I saw there. But the best guard who ever played in the shootout that I saw was Doc Rovers. The game was at BU for my first night, and he started the game, and he had an ace bandage on a knee. I don't know which knee, doesn't matter. He had an ace bandage, and he had a so-so first half. He publicly and ceremoniously unwrapped the bandage at halftime, like making a show of it. Went out there and kicked freaking you-know-what in the second half.
Yeah.
Put on a show of shows. That's how I discovered Glenn Rivers of
Right.
Chicago, Illinois. When he played with the Hawks, you can ask Steve Bulpett, you can ask Mike Carroll, you can ask Peter May, anybody who my contemporaries covering the team at that time, that we loved him, that he was the most congenial, accessible, intelligent, fun, just an amazing source for be on another team. And we just loved Doc Rovers. I went up to him, Gary, and did something one time off. I never did this before or after anybody ever in my career covering the league. Before game 6 in Atlanta, they were up 3-2 against the Celtics in 1987. And before game 6, I went up to him and said, "I don't know if we're going to end this series, but I just want to tell you what a pleasure it's been to know you and to cover you." I slobbered and gushed all over him. I just want you to know, if we don't see each other after this, I just want you to know how much I appreciate it. And I think I speak for my colleagues that we really appreciate how you are with us. Okay. All right. So then, I don't know if you remember in the famous Bird Dominique shootout,
Right.
which was game 7 of that. Doc Rovers had one of the great games of his career. He had 16 points and 19 assists. And people don't remember that, because for obvious reasons. But anyway, and then, of course, I followed his career at Orlando as a coach, and I followed his career as a broadcaster. And when he got named, I was ecstatic. I wrote a column. This is hallelujah. I'm going to love having Doc Rovers around. So that's my, and I've never wavered. I'm a big Doc Rovers guy.
Yeah, I knew he was. What I really enjoyed discovering, like Danny Ainge they had mutual respect for each other because they played against one another. And that's why Danny wanted him as a coach.
Yeah, they did have mutual respect. I remember doing a fun column once about who's a better player. And of course, Doc said Danny, and Danny said Doc, naturally, of course, it was a fun column. But, no, they were both one-time All-Stars each, I believe, an All-Star game, one each.
Right.
They were almost the same level of player, at the NBA. The second tier of really good, solid veteran player, good player, not a Hall, not a great.
Right.
But,
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
They were the perfect
did
front office coaching match because Doc had no desire to pick the players.
No, you're right.
Danny did his thing. Doc did his thing.
Well, it worked out great. So let me just say, this episode we needed after the downers of living through Reggie. There was they were horrible. Things you're not going to be reminded about. And this is all, as the late Al McGuire would say, seashells and balloons. This one, and it's so much fun. Ubuntu. Okay, so now we remember the year before in 06-07, the Celtics lost 18 straight at one point, and And the future didn't look so damn good.
Can I say
And
something
Paul
real
Pierce,
quick? Can I say something real quick? During that losing streak, do you know who the play-by-play announcer was that broke it? That was
you,
me, because Mike Gorman had a cold. Had a cold. Okay. Gorman was like, I'm done with this. He needed a break. I came back. I broke the losing streak. Me and Tommy did the game.
ah,
Of course,
I
I'm
love
no
it.
Gorman. So Tommy and I, like, it was whatever. Um,
It's great.
and Doc came up to me after and he was like, "Hey, you broke the streak." Poor Mike. I do. Mike's. I don't know what Mike's deal was with that, but I think Mike was like, I need a night off. Anyways, go ahead.
I know. So at this point in time, Paul Pierce is acknowledging and telling that he's the best player on a lousy team. He knows the feeling. Okay, so Wick, we got Wick Grossbeck here at one point saying to Danny on camera, how do you make a big three? The word was that thought that the theory, classical theory was you need a superstar and two very good acolyte players at the next level at minimum to win a championship. That's what people thought. I never believed in any absolutes like that. I think that's a bunch of crock of what. But they believe that. Fine. Okay. So he actually says it. He's on the camera saying, Danny, how do you make a big three? Well, Danny showed him how you make a big three. You take your fifth round, your fifth pick in the draft in 2007,
Right.
and you trade it to Seattle for Ray Allen. And now you can induce Kevin Garnett, who previous that he balked. And Danny and Kevin are talking. And people wonder about this conspiracy to this day. About Kevin slipping Danny Garnett, and all that. But anyway, they're talking. But Garnett he's not coming. He'll budge. He will not come to Boston until Ray Allen's going to be with the team,
Right.
as well as Paul Pierce. Ooh, okay, I can deal with that. And so suddenly you got a big three immediately. And it clicked from the start. One reason being Kevin Garnett is the most adaptable, player who doesn't need to score or shoot to have a profound impact on the game. And meanwhile, he will take the shots he doesn't make the shots he does take, shooting his his annual 50%, but he's not out there to do that. That's not what he's not his raison d'etre. His raison d'etre is defense. His raison d'etre is playing hard. His raison d'etre is distributing the ball. And okay, if you need me to get 25, I guess I can get 25. Kind of thing. We know what Ray Allen is. Ray Allen was Ray Allen, and now Pierce. This is when he took a big step up as an all-around player.
He did.
Big step up.
Big
Step up. And the whole thing. Meanwhile, they didn't get into it in the episode. And he's on camera once or twice. But Rondo, it's only his second year. Rondo had a big impact. If he doesn't play the way he plays, they don't win. I can tell you that. Now, plus they make other moves, such as they picked up Eddie House. They picked up James Posey. Remember James Posey would stand there at halftime, at midcourt before the game and give everybody the hugs and all that. James Posey was important. Eddie House, and then down the stretch, they pick up P.J. Brown, who was recruited by the Big Three. Literally recruited them. They talked them into coming out of retirement. It all worked. They were 66-16. And the funny thing about the playoffs is that the series got easier as they went along. The first round with Cleveland was life and death.
Right.
Went 7 because that game with Brian gets 45 and Paul gets 41. In Game 7, and then Detroit was a little bit of tooth pull, and the Lakers that could have been I said it's the only 6-game sweep in NBA history. They could have easily won the 2 games they lost, and
Right.
They did win one game. Of course, coming from 24 down out there.
Well, yeah, and I remember Doc the whole time never gave up coaching. Just like we're not done, we're not done, we're not done.
And then we culminate with one of the epic games 6s in Celtic history. A score that I remember writing, and I'll never forget, 131-92, and just it was an ecstasy in the Garden that night. And but we had other stuff. It was just a totally positive, fun episode. And I'm just when it was, I'm just looking here. Things that you learned you weren't really completely sure of. Doc Rovers telling them before Game 6, you're not only going to win, you're going to win big. He said that to the team before the game, and we all know that was quite a good prophecy. And then after it was over, Doc did not go into the locker room. he told us. He went into his office. Red had left a cigar that for if someday, and he wasn't a smoker as a rule anyway, but he could smoke a cigar. And he lit up that cigar and sat there by himself while the thing was being poured down in the locker room. That's an interesting little tidbit there. So, and I just, I want to back up, start the season off. When Doc hits him with the Ubuntu thing and what it means, the way of life, and togetherness and camaraderie and so forth. But the day that he made them assemble at 8 a.m. and Garnett was pissed. He didn't want to get up at 8 a.m. and get them to assemble, and then takes them on the duck boat tour. Say, this is where what you're going to be doing in 6 months. You're going to be taking a tour on the duck boat, and that got their attention, and it set the tone for the whole season for him and his coaching. So it's just a completely positive and fun episode. If people haven't seen it, they're going to.
I have some more questions.
One other thing.
Oh, hang on one thing, Bob. Let me get this in real quick. I'm sorry. Prizepicks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less and at least 2 players per shot to win up 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. Prizepicks, the best way to get on the action. Sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. The app is so easy to use. Springtime is here. Baseball season underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prizepicks lineup. And again, sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive a $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Aaron Judge for more than a dinger. Tyler Glasnow, more than 4 hits allowed. What do you think? Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game.
One other very almost heartwarming aspect of it. Bill Russell had a role in that team's fortunes. He basically embraced and adopted Garnett as a worthy heir to his legacy and team's legacy. And he told him that he would be willing to, if they won, he would be sharing a championship with them, one of his, And then when it was over, sure enough, he showed up. He was hugging Garnett. I had forgotten the role that the Bill was a presence at that time, but he was. So I mean, it's just a relentlessly positive and fun episode. And that year was, and the thing about it, this is like true with the Red Sox in '67 and other teams in other sports at other times. Nothing beats when you aren't expecting it. They lost 18 straight the year before. I was a profound skeptic, by the way. I want you to know. I'm going to admit my fallacy. I wrote a column after they assembled the Big Three, saying, "Well, guess what? They got the Big Three, but the remaining 9, I would every other no team in the league would trade for them." I said it's the worst remaining bench. And then they went out and they got Eddie House and James Posey, and picked up ultimately P.J. Brown. So they took care of that bench issue. And I remember took up Sam Cassell too, but right. They didn't need Sam Cassell. He got in the way of Eddie House, in my opinion. I was getting a little pissed off at him. He was getting playing time instead of Eddie House. But anyway, it was just one of the fun series seasons in all Celtic history.
What I remember when the Ray Allen deal happened, because I was doing the pregame then, Donnie Marshall and I were doing the pre and post game. Donnie was very plugged into the players. Of course, he went to play at UConn with Ray. And what we were kind of getting is we heard that KG doesn't want to come, KG doesn't want to come. But what we were also getting, I think from Ainge a little bit, was just be patient. I mean, Danny played the long game. He was all in on Kevin Garnett, and he wasn't going to take no for an answer. I mean, right? I mean, played the long game. Got Ray, because I remember I saw Danny somewhere, and I was just like, what's going on? He goes, just wait. We're not done. Because at first Garnett said, I'm not going. And Danny was like, yeah, well, we're not done yet. And then they got Ray. And Danny, I think I can't remember what day it was, he showed up at Garnett's house in California. I mean, on the doorstep. And Garnett's got this palace overlooking the ocean. I mean, he's north of, I can't remember which, he's north of LA, there up there on the Pacific Coast Highway. And knock, knock, knock. Kevin home, it's Danny Ainge. They go in, they sit on the patio overlooking the Pacific, they have a sandwich. That's, I mean, and
I like that.
that's
Yeah.
after when Ray, see, that's the one of the things that I feel I don't think Ainge gets remembered properly. And I think it's because Brad has had so much success recently. And I also think Danny took a lot of heat for the Kyrie deal. Anybody would have made the Kyrie deal. The Kyrie deal didn't work because Kyrie didn't work. That's not on Ainge. Ainge was a magnificent general manager. I mean, you just said it. They lost 18 in a row to getting the big three and winning it. I feel Danny's forgotten.
That's a good point. Well, we'll have to do our best to keep that memory
But how
alive.
about that? Ainge shows up at the house.
Love that. That's great. But
Kevin
Andy
Holmes?
showed up every. He was famous in the business for scouting.
Oh,
You could see him in a gym in Nebraska, or you could see him in Prague, or in Zagreb, or Beijing, or wherever. He was relentless. He was really, really,
Bob.
really.
Well, you've heard from our colleague, Mr. Goodman. They used to, I mean, Goodman, I mean, prior to, I don't know when Jeff got covering the NBA, but Jeff was a gym rat. I mean, Jeff would
Oh, yeah.
say, Ainge is the only guy I would see in these places.
Yeah, yeah, he was
The only guy I'd see goes, you know.
No, this is why it's gone on Garnett. He's truly sui generis. Uh, there've been intense guys, hardworking guys. He's on another level, on his own level of maniacal intensity. He's. I mean, Dave Cowens was intense, and believe me, in his own way, and very intense. But this guy was frighteningly intense, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
Remember
I
that
do know what you mean.
but
I
but
do know.
it wasn't an act. You know, it was
Oh, no.
just truly when he puts on that uniform. So it really was.
Oh, yeah. Game time makes getting tickets faster and easier. Even for hard to get playoff seats, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from the seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying playoff tickets. Okay, just pick out any specific games you want to attend. Go on, set up your account. On Game Time, say Boston, you punch in the city, you're off and running. It is so easy to use. Download the Game Time app today, create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Bob, I want to wrap up with a final question here. You mentioned Garnett, and I'm glad you tied that to Russell, because when you look at Celtics centers, you think Russell, Cowens, and Garnett with the way they played the game. Parrish was obviously a different type of player.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of, I always thought of Russell, but there's a lot of similarities between Garnett and Cowens.
Well, yeah. I mean, Dave, was con- sometimes very uncontrolled fury. He got himself in trouble as a young player. He got, and of course, uh, he couldn't control his emotions
Right.
at times. But Garnett was never out of control. He was never out of control,
Right.
ever. It was the way he was. He had his thing. Yeah, it's absolutely nobody really. There's a lot of guys that have their unique personas in this game, and nobody's is going to interfere with his identity as the most intense guy ever.
And if he doesn't get hurt, they win a second.
Well, and they were every bit as good in '09, and he doesn't play at all, and they don't win, and that's a lost one. That one I can live with because of that. The one I cannot live with, the one that irks me personally, is the next year, and they should have won the next year.
Yes.
And yes, Perk hurt, and all they needed was finally one game out of that lazy Rasheed Wallace, and they needed one good game out of him, and they couldn't get it in LA in Game 7.
Right, that's right. Because fourth quarter, they have the lead. If Perk's in that game, they win.
I'll never forget this guy. I'll take this one to my grave. They're up in 94 seconds. I've done this over and over, and in 94 seconds they went from +3 to -6. at the crucial point in the game in the fourth quarter. And it started, as so many Laker comebacks did in those days, a three-pointer by Derek Fisher.
Yeah.
And he was an assassin at those days with his threes. But, they win. They don't win that one. They easily could have won three, and that team was put together to do that. And then eventually they broke it up and eventually led, though. But in breaking it up, they assembled the draft pieces to enable them to, come up with the one that the group have, which may very well win it back to back.
All right,
So,
and we want everybody to be checking out the CLNS History Channel because Bob is going to be talking about all those players who have their numbers retired in the Garden. For those of you listening to this show, we ask you that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access to YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. There you go. Got through it, Gary. Here we go. We have been brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks, run your game. Okay, Bob, talk to you next week.